What's up? I forgot to watch that video in the last one, so we'll watch it now. What we're gonna do is take a camera, an endoscope, stick it up somebody's nose, look at all this, come down, stare right at this pharynx, or this larynx, sorry, our vocal cords. We're gonna be staring right at that. You'll see the epiglottis over top, and it's pretty nifty.
Very back of the nose, the scope is then bent down in order to visualize the throat. With further advancement,
So that's the epiglottis right there.
as well as the epiglottis. In this position, the vocal cords can be seen coming together to create sound.
They're using like a strobe light
Cords move apart in the shape
to visualize that vibration.
here to pass between the vocal cords into the windpipe and down into the lungs. The pitch of a person's voice can be altered by reducing the throat diameter as well as decreasing the height. This alteration is analogous to an organ pipe where the smaller diameter and shorter pipes create a higher
It looks like the eye of a demon.
organ pipe that is larger.
It really looks like the gateway to hell. Looks like Sauron.
As shown here, the vocal cords themselves can also adjust their thickness and tension to adjust pitch. Just like a violin string, the thinner and tighter the string, the higher the pitch. The thicker and looser the string, the lower the pitch.
Tasty. That's how I'm speaking to you right now. Pretty nifty. I think that's pretty cool. We got a little gateway to hell, and that's our voice. Coincidence? I think not. Okay. All right, let's continue down. All right, so now we're finally going to get into the lungs. All right, so we're drawing a human like this. Chest is facing forward. So kind of coming off of this, we've got a couple of fat pipes, like so. And these would be our bronchus, or bronchi, since we're talking about two of them. And then this, actually, let me fix that. Here we're going to draw our left lung, and then we'll draw the details of our right lung. So our right lung, our kind of bronchus will continue. And, you know, a lung looks a lot like, we'll say, a tree. I'm not going to draw in all the details of the tree, but it's branched. So we got these branches coming off like so. And it's beautiful, way more beautiful than I'm drawing here. And they form this beautiful branched network like so. And this just goes on and on and on and on and on until we kind of make little structures that look something like this. So these would be called bronchioles when they get thinner. Bronchioles, just like a thinner bronchus. And these would all be lined with pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. And this would be a giant escalator. Bring the mucus and bacteria and crap up into our esophagus so we swallow it, get rid of it. Okay, and then way down here, we got little things that look like tiny little popcorns. And these are our little air sacs. And they kind of look like a little crimped edge of a ravioli. And that's how I remember what they're called. They're called alveoli. It's kind of like ravioli. So one of them is an alveoli. Two of them is an alveolus. Alveoli. Or, I'm sorry, that's actually alveoli. Is two of them, and alveolus is one of them. Okay, and this is where we do our gas exchange, is inside of our alveoli. In our alveoli. Okay, this is where we do our gas exchange. And they're a single layer of cells. So if we zoom way in here, and we look at these cells, there'll be a single layer, just like that. You guys could probably remember what this is, what kind of epithelial layer this is. This is a simple squamous. Why would we want a simple squamous epithelium? To allow for quick diffusion across this cell layer. And what is going to be diffusing? Well, we're going to have oxygen, O2, leaving, and carbon dioxide coming in to leave the body. Okay? And we'll talk more about that. But our gases are going to be exchanged quickly across this alveoli, simple squamous epithelial layer. Okay? All right, so we got the single layer to allow for diffusion. And this is actually three-dimensional, so it's like a little sphere, like this. And so there would be all these little kind of air sacs. Kind of looks like popcorn. It's like a sphere. I'm not going to draw these dotted lines just for simplicity. Okay? I drew them in the past and it confused some people. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, very closely associated with this, we have our cardiovascular system. So coming along here, we've got our cardiovascular system, like butted right up against these cells. And, you know, it's a tube, so I'm going to draw the other half of it. With my dang mouse. Not easy to do. Beautiful. Okay? And then at some point it's going to be oxygenated. So I'm going to draw it in red. And then it's going to go up and out. Okay, same thing. I'm going to draw the other half of it. Like so. Very nifty. So the blood is going to flow in this direction. Let me draw that actually in kind of gray here. Blood flow. So this is the direction of blood flow. And if you remember anything about the cardiovascular system at this point, it's been a while. It's been a whole week. Even if you've even watched those lectures, I know you're all behind. But let's look at that. So this pulmonary artery, it's going away from the right ventricle to the lungs. Pulmonary artery, and then the pulmonary veins go back to the heart to go to the body. Okay, so we're going to be talking about our pulmonary arterioles, which are smaller arteries, and our pulmonary venules, which go back to the heart. All right. So these would be pulmonary arterioles because they're going away from the heart. This would be pulmonary arterioles. Pulmonary arterioles. But they're low in oxygen. Pulmonary arterioles. And then this would be pulmonary venules going towards the heart. But now they're high in oxygen. Okay. All right, so what are we doing here? We're bringing a gas in here into the alveolus. We're bringing the gas in, And then we're picking it up inside of our cardiovascular system so we could take it to the rest of our body. Why do we need to pick up gases for the rest of our body? What purpose does that have? Oh, right. We're trying to feed this mitochondria. It needs oxygen. And we need to get rid of this, CO2. And we'll talk about why we need to get rid of that. You already know, but we're going to talk about it again. We need to make ATP, and we need oxygen to make that. And we make this byproduct, which is toxic to us. So we need to get rid of that. Okay, interestingly, our lungs take care of both of those things for us. Crazy how the body works. So inside, when we take a deep belly breath, inside of the alveolus from the outside, in comes O2. And we'll draw this in, I don't know, we'll draw it in green. Oxygen, O2. And when we breathe out, what is leaving us? We'll draw it in this kind of nice purpley color. What is leaving us? That would be CO2. Okay? This blood here, it's just come back from the body. Now we're sending it to the lungs. This thing is depleted from O2. It's low. This is high in CO2. This is high in CO2, right? Because it's coming back from the body. It's picking up that mitochondrial waste product. It's high in CO2 and it's low in O2. So when we breathe in, we're going to have a high concentration of O2. When we breathe in, inhale, we have a high concentration of O2 in the alveolus. Okay? And that's going to want to go right here to where it's low O2. So let's just go ahead and make a bunch of little O2s here. Make them a little smaller. Right? We breathed in, we got a bunch of this. And where is it going to want to go? It's going to want to go. Whoop. Whoop. It's going to want to go right in, diffuse across that simple squamous epithelium, go into the bloodstream. All right? Meanwhile, when we breathe in, we have high O2, but we have low CO2. Right? Because we're breathing in, there's more oxygen in the atmosphere than there is carbon dioxide. Okay? Also, when we breathe in, there is a low concentration of CO2 in the alveolus. See how this is the exact opposite of what it is in the bloodstream? It's the exact opposite. This is high, this is low. This is low, this is high. It's a match made in frickin' heaven. Okay? So then what's going to be happening is we got high CO2 here. High CO2. There's a bunch of CO2 in the blood. And where do you think this is going to want to go? This CO2 is obviously going to want to diffuse to where it is in low concentration. CO2 is low in concentration in the alveolus when we breathe in. So it's going to want to diffuse in, like so. This will want to diffuse this way. Boom. So you see how we have that swap. Then when we exhale, now we're high in CO2 because this process is flipped. So now we exhale out that CO2 and start the process over again. So now as this blood is kind of halfway through the alveolus. Now it's high in oxygen, right? We've now flipped these, right? So now we're on this side, we are in the bloodstream, we are high in O2, right? Because it's picked all the O2 up over here. And we've dumped the CO2 into the alveolus and then breathed it out, exhaled it. So now it's low in CO2. Okay? Which means here in the pulmonary vein, it's high in O2, low in CO2. Okay? Does that make sense? We're talking about, let me just make sure we're clear on this. In the pulmonary venules. Okay? Which makes sense. Because when the air comes back from our lungs, we want it to be high in oxygen. Because where's it going to go? It's going to go to the mitochondria and the rest of our body, which need oxygen, right? Right? Let's go back here too. Let's go back here. Boom. We've got our pulmonary arteries going to the lungs. These would be low in oxygen. And when they come back to the heart from the lungs, they'll be high in oxygen. These pulmonary veins are the only veins that are high in oxygen because it goes back to the rest of the body. Know that the pulmonary veins and venules are the only veins or venules that are high in oxygen. Most certainly we'll want to get you with that on the test. Okay. Pretty cool. That's these little alveoli air sacs. All right, we have a bunch of them, and they're there to increase surface area so we can do this gas exchange. And here's just like an interesting fact. The surface area of your alveoli, so if you spread out your alveoli, the surface area of your alveoli are the same surface area of a tennis court. I know somebody, I think it was Jelly, said that if we took his heart and put it in our chest, we'd want to play tennis from time to time. Well, next time you're out playing tennis, you know what I'm saying? And you're standing on that tennis court, be like, that's the surface area of my lungs. And I'm smacking a ball around on it and playing a game. It's kind of weird. So it's a big surface area to do this gas exchange. Pretty interesting. I didn't talk about blood. I didn't label blood flow. Blood flow in this direction. Blood flow. Blood flow. Blood flow. Okay, now that's clear. Okay, I think I got everything I want there. This can be really confusing for people, so I hope that makes sense. I'm happy to talk about it in more details. Okay, one last little thing, and then I think we're done for the day. We're done for the week. Okay, let's zoom in here. We're going to zoom in at the alveolus. So we're going to be at the alveoli or alveolus. So we'll be at the alveolus and at a body cell. All right, so this would be like our little simple squamous epithelium. And this would be our cardiovascular system. I'm going to draw a little thicker like that. Okay, so at the alveolus, we've got lots of O2 up here. And I think I did that in green. So O2. Got lots of O2 up here. We're going to talk about what's going on here. How do we accumulate this O2? How does it go into our bloodstream? So this is the alveolus, and this is the bloodstream. or pulmonary venule. Pulmonary venule. Okay. And we've got something in here, you remember from last time, called a red blood cell. Got a bunch of them. And each red blood cell can hold 1 billion frickin' O2 molecules. And they do that. So where does this O2 go? Most of it is going to go directly into our red blood cells. So 99%, something like 99%, or 98% goes into red blood cells. And so then the O2 is going to link up with hemoglobin. Hemoglobin. And the way we can kind of abbreviate that is just HB for hemoglobin, and it becomes HbO2. O2. There we go. Okay. And then about 2% of it, about 2% dissolves directly in the plasma of the blood. So there's some gas just dissolved in the plasma, just like you have some oxygen and water and things like that. Carbon dioxide and water. Okay. All right. So that's happening in our bloodstream with oxygen at the alveolus. Okay. Then what happens is this red blood cell that's carrying, let's say, our 1 billion oxygen molecules goes to the body. Sorry, I need a little chapstick here. It's going to go to the body. And we got our body cells here. I'll just draw these in this color. We'll just draw them as like little rectangles, nice and easy. Somewhere in the body. We got our body cells. They got a nucleus. It's a freaking party. And then we've got our, we've got our artery, which is going to be bringing in our red blood cells. Okay, well, these guys, if you remember, they got these little things called mitochondria. It's kind of a crappy mitochondria. I can do it a little better. And what is the mitochondria? What does the mitochondria need? Mitochondria needs O2, and it needs sugar. And then what does it make? It makes CO2. Let me draw these actually on the opposite side this time. It makes CO2, water, H2O, and what? It makes ATP. We'll make it red. ATP. Okay? Perfect. This is freaking perfect. And you know why? Because we've got a red blood cell coming around that's full of oxygen. All right? So we got a red blood cell. Boom, and it's full of oxygen connected to hemoglobin. So we basically just reverse what we just did. We got this hemoglobin and oxygen in this state, and it's going to go basically in reverse. I'm actually just going to copy that. I'm going to copy this and bring it right over here. Just like so. And we're going to, let me see if I can actually, no, I'll just delete that. Right, so this is going to now be converted into oxygen and hemoglobin without oxygen. And this oxygen is going to go right up here. Right? And this is going to want this, since this thing is eating oxygen, oxygen is low in concentration here and high in concentration here. So this diffusion is going to want to happen. All these oxygen molecules are coming on and off this hemoglobin all the time, and then they're reattaching. But if you have a sink, a place that they want to go, a black hole, let's say, for oxygen right here, these oxygens are going to want to leave. Okay? Then this cell continues on, let's say, but it's not fully done. It can maybe from the next cell, or we'll just have it do it from this cell. It can start to do the next thing, which is this. So let's actually do it from this cell over here. And I'll make this arrow a little bigger, just so it's a little clearer. So now this cell over here got a bunch of CO2 in it, let's say. Bunch of CO2. It's been accumulating. It's been a long time since I had this much CO2, and I'm not a fan of it. I want to get rid of it. Okay? And how does it do that? It's pretty complicated. I'm not going to lie. All right? Interestingly, people don't know this. Some of it can actually bind to hemoglobin. So we still have this HB, this hemoglobin. And some of it can bind to that. So let's draw it just like, oops. Let's draw it like this. Let's draw it like without the arrows. It can go in CO2 can go in 3 different places. Okay. It's pretty interesting. So it can go to hemoglobin, and kind of contemplating how exactly I want to do this. I think I'll do it like that. Let's do it like this. So it can go like this. CO2 can combine with hemoglobin. It can go here, combine with something, and it can go here. Okay, let's go back to black. So it can go in 3 different spots. 2 of them are inside the red blood cell. 1 of them is just in the plasma. So 10% is just dissolved in plasma. 10% dissolved in plasma as gas. As gas. Okay. Just like oxygen, like 2% of it was dissolved in gas. Some of that's happening with CO2. Okay, this part here combines with hemoglobin, just like oxygen did, to make HbCO2. So the CO2 will bind to the heme group of hemoglobin, just like oxygen did. It'll bind to that little iron molecule. This part here is a little crazy. So this part will combine with water, H2O. It'll combine with water. And what does that make? Well, we talked about this a little bit. This can actually go in both directions, but this makes H2CO3. H2CO3, right? H2CO2 plus 1 is 3. H2CO3, which is carbonic acid, H2CO3. Another word for that is carbonic acid. Okay, carbonic acid. And this can fall apart. It's not super stable to make HCO3. So we've lost an H, HCO3 minus, which means that we have a proton on the loose. Plus H plus. And what is a proton on the loose? A proton on the loose is an acid, right? This is called bicarbonate. Bicarbonate. Bicarbonate ion. That's what this part is called right here. All right. This is what makes our blood acidic. CO2 makes our blood acidic. And if our blood gets too acidic, what happens? You guys remember it was all the way in the very beginning. I'll come back to that in a second. Don't worry. Our little medulla oblongata measures H plus to control breathing. It measures the acidity of our cerebral spinal fluid, which is connected to our cardiovascular system. So it measures the pH, the acidity, right here to control our breathing. And this is why you need to breathe out carbon dioxide and why it's toxic to us. It's why we need to get rid of this CO2. It's because it makes our blood acidic, just like soda is acidic. Pretty fascinating. This is also why, like, if you drink certain pH'd beverages like orange juice, it's really acidic, but it doesn't do anything to you because you can just breathe out that acidity, essentially. You can just breathe it out. Because if you look at this little flow chart here, if we breathe out CO2, we remove this, these protons are going to want to connect with bicarbonate to remove more, to make more CO2 to remove it. So this is called a bicarbonate buffer system. It helps buffer our CO2 levels. But this is actually why when you're holding your breath, your brain is telling you, dog, get rid of this CO2. It's not, you'll be fine without the oxygen. You can handle that, but it's your brain saying this pH is getting too low. It's becoming too acidic. Okay, and then some labels here. 10% is dissolved in plasma as gas. About 20% connects to hemoglobin, and that means about 70% is in this bicarbonate buffer system. About 20% or 70% enters here. Okay? So then when this gets to the lung, all of this CO2 leaves, these protons reassociate with bicarbonate to turn into CO2 to then be exhaled. All right, so this is why, like, if you drink like perfectly alkaline water for your blood, probably doesn't fucking matter. You could drink orange juice. That's super acidic. That's not perfectly alkaline for your blood, and you're totally fine. What does that really matter? This water's the perfect pH. Maybe it tastes a little better or whatever, but it doesn't. Your body regulates its pH all the time through breathing. That's free. Pretty wild stuff. And the reason why we're doing all this is to feed the mitochondria and to get rid of the mitochondria's waste products. That's why we breathe. These tiny little bacteria that we whipped and made our little bees to do our bidding. We now have to feed them. Who whipped who? That'd be a good discussion assignment. Who whipped who? Okay, I think that's all I want to teach you guys about the respiratory system. It's a pretty interesting system. You now know how to breathe. You know that axolotls have gills that dangle off of their head. You know how the mucociliary escalator works. This guy, I figured out a name for him. His name's Marvin. And you know what Marvin looks like on the inside. I think that's pretty good. I'll see you guys. Take a deep breath.